Here we go. Season 3 of Columbo is probably my favorite of the whole show. I mean, it's got a lot of great episodes to its name.
I can verify that.
Such a shame then that it starts off with one of the lamest entries of the entire series. Lovely but lethal.
Yes, it's terrible.
Struggling cosmetics queen Vivica Scott thinks all of her prayers have been answered when one of her chemists discovers a miracle cure for wrinkles. Unfortunately, said chemist is her former lover, Carl Lessing, and he's less than willing to simply hand the formula over to Vivica. In fact, he plans to sell it to her arch-rival, David Lang.
No thank you, darling.
A confrontation between Vivica and Carl at his beach house ends with her clobbering him on the head with a microscope. And yes, our victim this time round is played by a young Martin Sheen.
I'm your hairy little teddy bear.
Our killer is played by Vera Miles, who can definitely be described as a screen legend in her own right, but I don't care for her character at all. There's really no depth to Vivica Scott. We never really learn anything about her. She's neither all that dastardly nor sympathetic. She's just kinda there. She is a snappy dresser though, I'll give her that.
Right.
And of course, it's impossible to ignore that they have Vincent bloody Price right there beside her. Price plays David Lang, and he's as great as he's ever been. The highlight of the episode being the deliciously bitchy verbal spats between him and Miles.
You haven't hit with a really good new product since you, pirated those French lipsticks 2 years ago.
Is that where you stole the silly eyeshadows?
But he's such a clear-cut, stone-cold perfect choice to be a Columbo killer that it's again impossible not to hold it against the episode that they didn't cast him as the lead instead of Miles. I mean, this is no disrespect to her, of course, but come on, he's Vincent Price.
It isn't surprising, of course.
He only gets to share one scene with Peter Falk, and oh, what I would have given to see more. And not just for the sake of more Price, but for the sake of good storytelling. It's obvious that Lang knows more about Carl Lessing than he's letting on, and Columbo can sense this, but after their conversation goes nowhere, Lang just disappears from the episode and is not seen again. He's an important character in the story. We should have seen more of him. We should have seen Columbo tear him down to size. Imagine a scene similar to Columbo rattling the golf pro in Death Lends a Hand, only this time it's with the loathsome Lang. That would have been so good!
Well, why the devil didn't you say that in the first place?
Meanwhile, Lang's chain-smoking secretary Shirley Blaine is actually a spy working for Vivica to steal secrets from Lang's company. She's creepy, having some weird obsession with Vivica to the point of maybe even being infatuated with her. And I have to say, Shan Barbara Allen does a great job of being just creepy. I don't know why this actress didn't have a better career.
Thank you.
It doesn't take her long to figure out that Vivica must have killed Carl and starts blackmailing her for an executive position in her company. You dumb bitch, Carl was blackmailing her and ended up dead. What do you think's gonna happen to you? That's right.
Bye, Shirley.
For those wondering what just happened there, Vivica had actually slipped Shirley a cigarette laced with poison.
Whew.
Nice to see the cosmetics-themed episode actually feature a cosmetics-themed murder, since the initial killing isn't exactly memorable. God, I'll really bitch about anything in this episode, won't I? I will, so let's do it some more.
Did you ever hear of anything so insufferably male?
Recurring bit player Fred Draper makes an appearance as one of Vivica's leading chemists, and he gets a disproportionate amount of screen time in the first part of the episode. It makes you think that he'll play a really significant role, either that of the victim or the murderer, but then, like Price, he just sort of fades away into the background while the less interesting elements take center stage. Draper's oddball, manic-depressive performance is amusing though. If the masseuse looks familiar to anyone, it's cause she's Anne Ramsey, aka Mama Fratelli from The Goonies. And did you know that the music for The Goonies was done by Dave Grusin, who scored the first ever Columbo Prescription Murder? Do you even care? Even when I was a kid, whenever I saw this episode on TV, I wasn't a fan of it. Then I found out why. It was directed by Jenno Schwark, and look, I've nothing against this guy personally, but I don't think I've ever enjoyed anything he's directed, the most famous of which is probably the monotonous Jaws 2.
How horrible.
I guess this is actually the second time he's followed in Spielberg's footsteps, huh? It doesn't help that he was saddled with an episode script with an inherently dull backdrop. I mean, the makeup industry, not exactly the most riveting environment the Lieutenant's ever been in. Speaking of, even Falk looks bored here. He's not bad, he was never bad, but he doesn't seem to be enjoying himself much. Maybe he was annoyed by how long it takes for Columbo to even show up in the episode. There's twice as much setup as is necessary stuffed into the first part of the story, meaning it takes absolutely ages to get going.
You belong in a museum.
Is the gotcha at least good? Well, it's alright. Both Columbo and Vivica develop a skin rash on their hands as a result of coming into contact with poison ivy. Since poison ivy doesn't grow in Southern California and neither of them have been out of state recently, there's only one place they could have picked it up: the broken microscope slide at the crime scene.
You touched it when you picked up the microscope and hit him. That's when the slide broke. I got it when I put my hand on the floor and it touched a piece of glass. I remember because I said, fellas, feels like there's broken glass here.
I could probably nitpick this part too, but since I've dragged every other aspect of this episode over the coals, I'll just be nice and let it be. I mean, it does at least get the job done and finally get us to the end credits. Lovely but lethal. They should have called this one Lovely but Lethargic.
Sorry, love.